Okay, Shawn, we come a long way in just 2 times working together. Here was your old swing. You can see what those hands were doing through impact. It made it very difficult to have good club head ball contact when those wrists are just not working correctly through impact. First thing we needed to do is correct the grip, but also retrain the hands to close the club face correctly through impact instead of this right wrist curling and this left wrist bending back. Which allows the club face to stay open and then the club head to move up through impact. We need to correct that. And you can see when the club face would stay open, you'd come over the top. So you'd come over the top to try to chop across the golf ball because that club face was staying open through impact because you're pushing with this right hand and then letting that left wrist break down through impact. So what we wanted to do is the opposite. Actually, we'll take a look at your grip also, but we need these hands leading this club head. So instead of this right wrist curl, we need a left wrist curl. And instead of a left wrist bend back, we need a right wrist bend back through impact. So now we can hit ball then ground. So you can see this left wrist curling instead of this left wrist bending back and this right wrist curling. So it makes a huge difference. Now it doesn't matter whether it's Tony Finau. And also when you do that, when this right hand is pushing through impact, the arms can't extend, and that's where you get the chicken wing. So here, the arms are extending. Here, the arms are pulling up into your body. So a lot of things go wrong when you don't use your wrist correctly. If we take a look at Tiger Woods, or if we take a look at another one of your swings, we're going to see this instead of this left wrist curling to impact. So we can see Tiger. This now he started, obviously young doing this. So we're playing catch up a little bit, but not a problem. But here you can see that right hand pushing and flipping because you're just trying to close the club face by curling this right wrist, and we're trying to close it. We need to close the club face by not curling the right, but curling the left and bending the right wrist back. Okay, so this is where we started from. Let's take a look and see how much improvement we made. Okay, so first we just start training the right wrist. So I'm gonna get out of the way here. We got this right hand a lot more underneath. Good, so you can see big difference. So we got the right hand a lot more underneath than you had it. It was a lot on top. Here, with the right hand underneath, we can close the club face a lot easier if we have the right technique. But before, here's your old right wrist technique. So the right hand would try to push the club face closed. And then here, we're going to get a curl in that right wrist. And we could add a little bit more shoulder turn, but this is fine. As much curl as we can have. And then you go from a curl to a bend back. Now we're trying to get the palm of the right hand to point to the ground. And now here's your new impact position. So there's your new impact position. So here's your old, and there's your old, and here's your new. Okay, so huge improvement. Now we've got some forward shuffling because we're closing the club face by bending this right wrist back to try to get this palm of the right hand to point to the ground. Good, so huge improvement so we can hit ball then ground. Now we get this right wrist, now this technique, so we can see this big right wrist curl and the opposite here, right wrist bend back. Okay, so now we're going to get both hands on here, and I'm going to crank it just a little bit more, get the palm of that right hand point to the ground. Okay, so now we get both hands on here, and now we're going to go from this old technique where you would push with this right hand. We're going to take a look and compare both, and then let's stop you right here. There's your old technique through impact, and here is your new technique through impact. Okay, so you're hitting ball then ground. There the ball goes. And now we can see that you're not letting this left wrist break down and flip with the right hand, but it's actually the opposite. So instead of this right wrist curl, now you have a left wrist curl. And instead of a left wrist bend back, you now have a right wrist bend back. There you go. So now we're starting to train the hands correctly. Great. So now the next thing, we kind of start working this into fuller swings. So in your old swing, because you started with the weak grip and then you were closing the club face by pushing with the right hand, you'd have to come over the top and try to push and throw the club head at the golf ball. And that's where we're getting that right hand pushing so this club face doesn't get closed. And when the club face doesn't close correctly through impact, now you have to come over the top, and that's what was happening. So you'd suck the hands back behind you, and then you'd come over the top. From backswing to downswing, we can see those hands that big over the top, come over the top and try to swing across it because that right hand is flipping and that club face is staying open through impact. So we can see that one. And then what happens is you end up, kind of twisting around your body because you're trying to swing to the left as hard as you can because that club face is staying open, and you have this big over the top move, and we need to do the opposite. So here again, the club face should be pointing to the ground by this point, but it doesn't matter who we take. We want these hands to transition back and down. So you're going to see these hands go back and down. So they pull back and down, so then they can swing out through the golf ball. It doesn't matter whether it's a, kind of a full swing or if a smaller swing. We can see, whether it's a chip, you can see what, Bryson DeChambeau, he's going to feel these hands go back and down. So see how it kind of pulls the hands back and down. So these hands go from here, they pull back and down, and then he does it on the chip. So he's practicing that, and then he does it on both small swings and then also bigger swings. So his hands go from here, he's going to yank his hands back and down. Watch, they go back and down. So on the way back, here's the path the hands on the way back, and then here's the path the hands on the way down. So they pulled back and down. He doesn't do it, it's not a mistake. He does it on every swing. So if we take a look at that swing, take a look at this swing, here's a driver. His hands are going to go from here. He's going to yank his hands back and down. Watch, he's going to pull his hands back and down. So now he's all the way back here. So that lets him swing out through the golf ball and helps this left wrist curl as he's swinging his forearms out through the golf ball. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's Bryson DeChambeau, whether it's, we can see, multiple examples here. So we'll just go through a few. Here's Bernard Langer. The hands go back and down. So there's the dot on the butt end of his club here, and there's the butt of his club back here. So now his hands have pulled back and down. So now he can swing out through the golf ball and let this left wrist curl. That helps that left wrist curl through impact, this right wrist bend back, and then he swings out through the golf ball. It doesn't matter whether it's an iron or a driver, it's going to all be the same thing. The hands are going to go from here, and then they're going to pull back and down. Watch. They go back and down. So now the hands are back here. So we're going to do the same thing with you. We're going to not only get you trained in the correct backswing, if we take a look here, we're going to put a mark right on the hands here, and then watch. The hands are going to pull back and down. So the hands go back, and then they pull down. So now the hands are back here. So the path the hands on the way down is inside the path the hands on the way back. And it doesn't matter whether it's, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Tiger Woods. We're going to put a dot right on the butt end of the club, and the path the hand on the way down is going to be inside that path on the way back. So here they are on the way down. So the hands have pulled back and down, so then he can swing out through the golf ball. And it doesn't matter who we take. Gary Woodland, if we put a mark right on the hands here, the hands are going to pull back and down. So that's where the hands are on the way back. And then here they are on the way down. So now they're back here. Same thing. So that lets him swing out through the golf ball. That helps that left wrist curl and close that club face. So, if you know what to look for, you can see this transition. So see how the hands go from here, they're going to pull back and down. So watch, they go back and down. And then he's going to swing out through the golf ball. Now we can also take a look at Rory McIlroy. The hands are going to go from, I'm going to put a mark right on the hands here. That's the path of the hands on the way back. And then let's go say yellow on the way down. So here's the hands on the way down. And then we're going to go a little bit farther. Here's the hands on the way down. So see how there's this big, it's probably a foot. He's pulled his hands a foot back and down so he can swing out through the golf ball. And here he goes out through the golf ball. Okay, so now let's take a look at your after technique. Okay, so we're going to swing through. I'm holding these to make sure you swing through these positions correctly. And then remember, there's this table just back behind you off your right hip. That your hand's going to go pulled back and down to the table. So now, instead of this old technique where your hands would go back behind you and come over the top, now we've got this new technique. We're going to go one, I'm going to keep your hands out in front of you. Keep your hands out in front of you. Now they can get to go back and down, and then now out through the golf ball. Here they go. So you're going to curl your right wrist, foot back, 2 feet down to the table here. There it is. Bam, hit that table. Now I'm not putting the table at your knees. I'm not putting it at your chest. It's right here, right at the top of your belt buckle. There you go. And so now you can swing out through the golf ball, and that's going to help that club face close. And then so here you are before, and then now you can see if we zoom in here, See how you've got this, you're starting to get the left wrist curl. So now you've got the forearms rotating here. Here, that right hand was pushing, and you have this big bend back in your left wrist. Okay, so let's go one more. And here you are. We're going to compare your before to after. I'm going to get this. You get a little bit up on your right toe. The right shoulder gets a little bit high. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try to drop your right shoulder back behind you and then get that right wrist to bend back. That's it. So the right hand's always trying to throw. It's always trying to curl through impact and past impact. And we just got to fight that. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next swing here and compare before to after. That's it. I'm going to try to get that right shoulder to go back and drive it under the chin so you can swing out through the golf ball is what I'm shooting for. Okay, here's our next swing. So let's compare before to after. And here you are before. And the kind of that over the top move, trying to close that club face, but it doesn't close. And then this ball goes shooting along the ground. Okay, here you are after. Keep the hands out in front of you and then pull back and down and then out through the golf ball. Good. Great work for our second time together. Huge improvement from this over the top move. That's it. Curl the right wrist back a foot. Now, this may be a little bit more than a foot. We only need to go back just about here. That's it. This one goes a little bit back too far. You come all the way back here. We just need 1 foot back, 2 feet down to the table. But still huge improvement. It goes back, down, and then out through the golf ball. Great work. Huge improvement. Nice.